Before I begin, I want to thank these two people for being here. I want to thank Tony, my buddy from New York. They're down here vacationing and they took some time out to chat with us today. Dr. Fred Harvey, who's here in Sarasota, and he's a functional medicine guy. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about both their stories, but they're going to chat as well. And those of you who know me through various circles, or you may not, I'm Amy. I'm with Amy Soup Circle. Hula Hoop Fitness is kind of my thing, and MS is what connects me with these people up here, and is what sort of brought this all together. And we really believe that chatting about food, health, wellness are just what helps everybody else find their way and their journey. And so this nice, lovely studio here belongs to a friend of mine. She's actually not in town right now. She's a snowbird, so she's up north, but she said, sure, that would be lovely. So I'm thrilled that she gave us this beautiful little venue to have this in tonight. And so we are recording this tonight. It's going to go out onto my YouTube channel, and it's this spring. And I'm really excited about this because I just found out about it yesterday. I got an email. The first time I got an email from Dr. Terry Wahls, and she was inviting me to come to her seminar and maybe hula hoop with people. My husband was on the phone, and I took a little paper, and I'm going to Terry's, and I was so excited. And then yesterday I get an email, and Dr. Terry has a new book coming out. I think it's actually a revised version of the protocol, and I'm super duper excited. And she asked if I would share the word in the news, because it's amazing what happens when you open up your email sometimes. And so then I did go running around the house once again and shared the good news with just my husband, who's there, but I'm kind of crazy that way. So that's going to be coming out, and you can watch for information on that. Dr. Fred, when I chatted with him last week, was awesome because he's like, join the conversation. And we did a little video snippet. If you didn't see that, it's on my website. And I just love that join the conversation, because when you start talking with people and sharing information, this is what happens. Tony has this motto where when it comes to fitness, just show up. And so there are days when there's this little voice in my head that says, just show up to do it. And then Dr. Terry, one of the things that she is working on creating is that epidemic of health. Because we hear about all these epidemics that are not good, but an epidemic of health is a very good thing. So that's really why we're here tonight with, I think, those three, core bits of information to show up, to join the conversation, and to work on that epidemic of health. For those of you who don't know my story or my full story, I'll give you the Reader's Digest condensed version. I was diagnosed with MS in 2012. I was overweight. I was obviously sick. Things weren't going well. And I started hula hooping, and I'd also seen Dr. Wahls' TED Talk. And I thought, I can eat good foods, I can blend it up. So I just started blending things that usually went bad in my refrigerator. The spinach went bad, the broccoli went bad. I was going to eat it, and then I ended up throwing it out. And so I would do 2 smoothies a day, and I would just throw good stuff in there. I got rid of processed foods, and I also started hula hooping. And that's where my passion for hula hooping started, because my husband gave me a hula hoop, and he theorized that even though I was walking with a cane, that maybe I could stand still and hula hoop. And it kind of worked. And then I kept doing it a little bit more every day once I finally got it going around. I moved down here, recovery was happening, I lost weight, and then I found a hula hoop class on the beach, and then I fell in love with the hula hoop all over again. And so I keep sharing the hula hoop, I keep sharing my story, and I'm very passionate about healthy foods. I'm passionate about letting people know that food matters, it makes a difference, and that there are great people in this world who are living examples, who help you find your way to your goals. And so that's what brings me here today. And well, I still have MS. There are some days that are very challenging. I get up and don't want to move. But there is such joy in finding your way. And so I'm thrilled that I found my way here tonight, that Tony's here, and that Doc is here. Thank you so much. And that we're talking about things that matter. Tony and I met at the Wahls seminar, And I met Dr. Fred because I went to the Wahls seminar determined to leave the Copaxone that I was scared onto. I was using drug therapy for about a year to a year and a half. There's more to that story. We don't need to go into it. But I didn't want to be using the drug therapy anymore, and I really believed that I didn't need to be, and so that was my journey. I came back from the seminar in 2016 looking for a functional doctor, and this is where Dr. Fred walked into my life because I was referred to him, and he was there to help me find my way back to where I'd been prior to all that stress that put me into drug therapy for a little bit. And so that's how we're all connected here. And so Tony Ferro created Change MS. He is the founder of that organization. His goal is to educate that food is medicine, fitness matters. He was really discouraged by the lack of information about food that was out there when he was diagnosed. And so he created his non-for-profit Change MS. So change happens. And he is now a nutritional health coach and certified as a Wahls protocol instructor. And that is phenomenal. And so I had some questions for you, and then I'm gonna run some questions over to you, and then we're gonna go from there. So your story, Tony, is really powerful. Tony and I talked 2 years ago, and Tony was telling me that, explain when you were diagnosed, the point where you decided maybe you should go to a neurologist.
Yeah, I was a stubborn man for a very long time. My symptoms started in 2008. Started with my right hand going numb. Kind of blew it off, went away. At that time, I was taking boxing classes, working out pretty heavily, didn't think anything of it. I've come from a background of athletics and working in the family business. You don't really get sick days. You don't have really an option to take a break. So I kind of blew it off. It ended up going away. I came back about 6 months later. It was a little bit higher. I didn't experience any pain, but numbness severely. By the time I started going to the doctors, I was severely numb from the neck down. Couldn't feel my feet on the ground. Had the MS hug. How many people in this room have MS, if you don't mind me asking? So you know a lot that comes with it. Fatigue, brain fog, depression, everything I felt like it was hitting me at one time. And then I started going to the doctor. So MRIs, I ended up getting the spinal tap. In 2012, I was officially diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And after the official diagnosis, I felt like things kept getting worse and worse and worse. I'd flare twice a year. I was sent home with 3 binders full of medications. It was up to me to choose what I wanted to take. And this whole talk isn't really about meds versus no meds. It's just about being as proactive as possible. That's what Change MS is about. You're kind of changing your perspective. I've come from the family business, which was a pizzeria. So it was a challenge to give up everything. So unlearning was the biggest challenge. Unlearning almost everything that we thought to be okay. Yes.
No. He told me he was standing in front of the pizza ovens. He said, I couldn't feel my hands, I couldn't feel my feet. And then I decided to go to the doctor, and I thought, oh, okay, like that. What's that? It's just a flesh wound. It's just a flesh wound, So it's kind of like,
couldn't walk.
So that's when you decided to go to the doctor. But there's 2 things that you hit on, and I think that a lot of us feel that way. When you don't feel pain, because people go, well, what's your pain? What's your pain? What's your pain? I went to the doctor, it was the same thing. What's your pain? I didn't have pain. I felt funny. And so a lot of times, well, you go home, you'll feel better, and feeling funny doesn't necessarily account for something. I feel like it doesn't get listened to.
My favorite phrase is, come back later, we'll see what develops.
And that's the conversation that we'll wait till it gets worse before we'll do something about it.
Wait till it develops.
Yeah.
I can treat it.
Which is what they told you several times when you went.
Yeah, it was, yeah, there was, yeah. So, yeah, that happens. But that's why we're here having a conversation.
Yes.
But Tony decided he'd just wait till they were sure he had some
The
symptoms
very
before
last.
he went. So his journey was one that many have. So you went from the binder
The
to
binder-
deciding in the family business to deciding this, change MS.
I was in nowhere in the shape I am in now, but the process of being diagnosed was kind of shitty, excuse my language. They kind of just diagnose you and shoot you out the door with little to no information, not even what the disease is, what the root cause is. Just choose your own medicine and we'll see you later. Like, to me, it was like time stopped. It was the first time in a long time that I didn't know what MS was. I only knew one other girl that had it. She was a little bit more proactive. We ended up finding a new naturopath back home. This was before the protocol even came out. I did go home and read those 3 binders. Ended up going on the drug company's websites. The reasons why those medications worked were all declared unconclusive, and at the time it was only a 30% chance of them even working. So, and there was 30% chance of placebo. So I wasn't much of a student because I was a spoiled athlete in high school, but something about this just triggered something. There had to be more, there had to be more, there had to be more.
Yay!
At the time I was 500 pounds. I'm down 150 since diagnosis.
Whoop, 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 whoop. I cheer that, and he's like, "Oh, stop it, Amy." But this guy, I think that's truly amazing because you have to find that switch that flips, that there's that, and it's you. You have to do this, and you and I talked about this as well. That the person who stands in front of you is partnering with you about their health. They're concerned about it, and they have to be proactive. And I think that's exactly where you're coming
It
from.
took me a while. It took me a little bit longer because I always had
That
that
face.
kid mentality
It took me a
where I
little
deserved to
longer.
cheat. I was good for this amount of time, so I could do this, this, and this, or an off day, or a cheat day. With autoimmune, it doesn't necessarily work like that because the fire's almost out. We just doused gas all over again. So every time I got too comfortable, I ended up flaring. So it was always a direct correlation between stress and food. The more I flared, the more I was like,
What am I gonna do?
Sorry,
Beep.
excuse me.
Beep.
I don't have beeper buttons.
Sorry. I'll keep I'm sorry.
Behave.
We have a child in the room. I apologize.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure she's heard that word before, but let's just move on.
You just get all these light bulb moments, but you have to use those as lessons and tools to really get your stuff together. So it wasn't really until I stopped lying to myself that I started seeing results. Brain fog lifted, my use of my hand. I couldn't grab things. My depth perception, start my car, put my socks on. Everything started coming back, and then I would feel really good, and then crash all over again. So it took me a few crashes before I was really,
Proactive.
yeah. like-
For yourself.
For myself. So quality of life became top priority.
Tell me how you went from all of that to the day you decided Change MS was part of your life.
It
and where you
wasn't
went.
even that. This was a thought because of the way I was diagnosed. I was nowhere near ready to promote being like healthier, but I knew the information that people needed to get. I wasn't even applying it myself fully yet.
So and now you have a group that meets.
Yep, we meet monthly. We've done educational classes. We like to focus on 5 main topics, which we think is pretty crucial when dealing with autoimmune, which is self-love and acceptance. So our lives are turned upside down. How do we get a grasp on things? How do we really start to reinvent ourselves? We focus on nutrition, movement of any type. If you've never seen her hula hoop, you should watch that because it's pretty amazing. Nutrition, movement, sleep, stress reduction, self-love, and acceptance. Those are the 5 things that we like to focus on as far as education and really trying to teach people how to live a better life.
Yay!
Yes.
And that is so important because I don't remember walking out of the doctor's office with anybody mentioning those five
None of
things.
them. They never talk
Right.
about nutrition. They never talk about. They'll tell you MS is an inflammatory condition. They'll tell you autoimmune is all related to inflammation. Nobody gets into where inflammation stems from or how to take the logs off the fire. And my last neurology appointment, they actually came in and talked to me about potentially teaching their patients because they don't have the time. Now that I am a nutritional therapy practitioner, Wahls certified health coach, everybody that I talk to, there's no doctor in town that does not know me or my story, and they're like, this guy's a pain in the ass, we should just start working with him.
Yay!
So slowly but surely, things are coming full circle and coming together to where it's going to benefit the patient, because if we're neglected to the max, and it sucks. You know,
Stop it.
Sorry.
That was better than the other one.
He is telling it like it is. Okay, oh, fine.
Sorry.
But can we give that an applause, because
I feel like my posture's got to be right, my grammar's
stop
got to
it.
be right.
Okay. But that's just, and Tony just, when I met him at the seminar, he's just this wonderful, kind-hearted spirit that will help anyone, that will do anything for anybody. And when I heard his story, I was in awe, because I think it just takes so much because even when he told me I wasn't in any position to help anyone because I was still struggling so much myself, but yet there was that little voice, I think, calling out, and he knew how he wanted other people to feel in this process. So I'm glad you're a pain in the ass,
Yes.
and that you've got people listening to you, because you're going to make a difference in their lives. And a person that's really made a difference in my life, I'm going to keep you right there, don't go anywhere, is Dr. Fred, because when I had come out of that funk, and I knew I didn't want to be on Copaxone anymore, and I read the information, I knew it wasn't helping me, I knew it deep down in my core, and yet somehow I'd been scared so much I was actually afraid to not take it. Like somehow the day I didn't take it, I would take a step and like blow up. Implode. I mean, that's really how I felt, because I've been scared so much. So then I went looking for Dr. Fred, and let me give you a little bit of information about him for those of you who don't know him in the area. He is, not only my doctor, he founded the Harvey Center for Integrative Medicine, and he is truly passionate about partnering with his patients to be the healthiest they can be, and really just avoid disease altogether. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people maybe don't start looking for a functional doctor maybe until it's past that point, but that is the goal, and it'd be awesome if everybody found and felt that way sooner. That is how I found Dr. Fred. It was really important for me that when I was looking for a new doctor, that somehow, I'm not sure it would be as important now to me, but then it was that somebody had come from conventional routes of medicine, and that they had gone from conventional to functional, because I felt like if they'd done that, they truly understood my dilemma and what I was working through. And so, I was reading bios of people and everything else, and for me, that was really important, because somehow that person had made that transition. Dr. Fred is triple American board certified in internal medicine, gastric medicine, and functional medicine. You can also, geriatrics, I'm sorry. Did I?
My brother's the gastroenterologist.
Geriatrics, oh, so sorry. Oh man, I failed. Forgive me. Okay, I made him smile at least. Yay. You can also find him on 88.5 WMNF Community Conscious Radio, and I want you to tell me a little bit more about that, because I don't know enough about it. And so his story, I know part of his story, actually two different pieces of story about why he is a functional medicine. You started to tell me a little bit about Eugene, and you also told a story about not wanting to have back surgery yourself, and how you found your path that way. So which came first, the chicken or the egg in those two stories?
I want to go back to a point you made about needing a functional practitioner that has basis in Western medicine. Functional medicine is quite misunderstood. There's lots of people out there that say that they're functional practitioners. That doesn't mean they're functional medicine practitioners.
Okay. Define that for us, will you?
Well, there's a group called the Institute for Functional Medicine that was founded by Jeffrey Bland, who's probably the most brilliant medical mind on the planet today, and his friend David Jones, who's a family practitioner who was director of the largest private doctors group in Oregon, insurance and physicians, and two of them realized it wasn't working. And Jeffrey Bland's been teaching preventive medicine for years, changed it to the concept of functional medicine, and over the last 20 years has created a paradigm that is new medicine. And so the reason it's important is that someone who's gone through training at IFM, becomes an IFM CP, certified practitioner, means that they've gone through Western medicine training and then been trained in a new way of thinking about healthcare delivery, different from the current Western allopathic, name it, blame it, tame it, kill the disease with some drug, surgery, or radiation, linear thinking that doesn't work in human biology or in any biologic system. We are very complex, and functional medicine addresses systemic imbalances before disease even shows up, so we can actually prevent disease, and after disease has shown up, which is what we've been trained by in this Western model, to go and look for a doctor after you're ill. So most people come in with disease, but from my perspective, disease is a label created by allopathic medicine so we can get paid to treat. But the label's really irrelevant. Like, I've never met a diabetic. I've never met an amnestic, right? We're humans who have medical problems. So diabetes is a problem with sugar metabolism, and MS is a problem with an immune attack on the nervous system. The reason neurologists have trouble explaining it is because they don't know what it is. All they know is you get little holes in your brain because. Because why? Because. But why, doctor? Because. Because I told you so. And here's a pill that suppresses your immune system so you don't have an immune system attack on your brain. But it doesn't treat MS. It treats the immune system because they don't know what causes MS. So they don't treat MS, they treat the surrounding symptoms to suppress it so you don't express it. How's that? So what came first was me realizing that Western medicine wasn't working when I saw Eugene, who was an obese patient with diabetes, high blood pressure, osteoarthritis, kidney problems, you name it. He had an ologist for every organ in his body in New York. And he came down to Florida in the winter. And he came to see me. Actually, he didn't come to see me. He went to the hospital with a heart attack. And the cardiologist called me and said, hey, I need you to admit this guy to the hospital, because cardiologists, they don't like to do general medicine. They just want to put catheters in. So he said, you take care of this guy. And from 1989 till 93, I took care of him. Did all the things we're supposed to do. Work on the cholesterol, work on the sugar. He wouldn't listen to me. He ate tons of bagels and he kept his sugar under control. But 4 years later, he got a 5-vessel bypass. And I said, what do we do? What do we do? We didn't impact this guy's disease. He got worse. So I realized there was a problem, and I started looking and re-educated myself and left that practice paradigm and opened up a holistic practice, because I knew there was something more than just throwing pills at people or cutting their chest open and giving them fake new arteries. It just didn't make sense. There was a way we could do this better.
Nice.
Awesome. It just like leaves everyone speechless when you say that, because.
Exactly.
And then I'm sure that was really easy, and everybody was like, "Oh, that sounds great, right?"
Well, yeah, it is so great, because at the end of that, the practice had killed my marriage, and my wife had left, and
there were some issues.
I was working 100 hours a week, and it was not very fun. It was worse than being in residency. It was a terrible. The practice was falling apart, and I had to get out. But in the meantime, my back went out, and my right leg was paralyzed, and I had a disc that sheared off and sat on the nerve root and caused my leg to be paralyzed.
So your options at that point in time might have been.
Well, most people think, oh, I'm going to see a neurosurgeon and get cut on. I went to see Mike, the neurosurgeon, and said, how are we going to do this without surgery? And I did, with high-dose medications, and I took, fortunately, I was in a position where I could take 3 months off work. I went to physical therapy every day. I got chiropractic, 2 different types. I had healing touch, I had craniosacral, I had polarity therapy, I had acupuncture, herbs, nutrition. What else did I do? Yoga therapy, all kinds of things. And within 3 months, the paralysis was gone. In 6 months, the numbness was gone, and I have no problem with my right leg 25 years later.
Yay. And
No surgery!
No surgery.
Also, 2 rotators cuffed, fixed without surgery. I won't let them touch me, it's crazy.
Good, I like that. I like that. And so there are times when surgery is necessary. There are times
Yes.
when
But don't listen to the orthopedist if he's offering surgery. Talk to your functional medicine doctor first.
go find a functional medicine doctor first. So there were 2 instances that really convinced you that the avenues were different. And so now I think the world is a better place because we do have the conversations. I still don't think there's enough information out there, and I still think people are searching, because I myself went searching when I moved down here to find someone.
Yes.
I think both of you have, and you mentioned this about Oz, who has come with you. Oz, raise your hand. Oz, your title is?
Functional medicine health coach.
Okay, functional medicine health coach, hanging out in the same realm as Tony. And I think one of those things that people say often, and I'm sure you've heard this maybe once or twice, it's hard. And I think some people have even asked me, well, how can you eat like that? Isn't that hard? And
How many times did Tony say, I'm not giving up my pizza?
Well, many.
right, and it's challenging.
It is.
And yet some of that is sort of that mind switch between I can't and I choose. Because saying I can't have it versus I choose to not have it and choose something else is that kind of flip switch. And I think having someone within a practice to help make those choices, like what you're doing in Buffalo, that's great when they come looking for you. And I think if I was in Buffalo and I needed somebody, and I knew Tony's story and the journey of, can I say your size is the 6X?
Absolutely.
I mean, he started out as 6X. He's a 3X, fast approaching a 2X, and I think that's amazing. And it's not necessarily about, oh, I'm gonna go on a diet. This is his life, and he's changed his life, and he's saving his life. And so when somebody asks me about how do you eat like that, you know, yeah, I fall off the food wagon sometimes, and usually I feel really crummy when I do, and then I go right back to the other food moment. Gee, that wasn't good, so let's go back to what works well, which is the good food. And so having someone to coach you, but having a doctor I had a doctor, I know you'll believe this, because I had a doctor tell me that healthy food wouldn't hurt me. But he didn't say it would help me. And you know, that's where I kind of went, I don't know if I'm hanging out with you anymore. Because I knew because I'd already eaten foods that mattered. And I think we know that. So I think the conversation is pretty awesome when you start with somebody who has their roots in what we all knew as medicine, then moved over to a new view of relearning. Somebody who had their roots in that difficult position of really looking at life and changing it. And I think both of you are awesome for being here and sharing your stories. I'm looking to see what other questions I had for both of you. And while I do that, if you have a question out there and, you'd like to ask, they're all open for questions. One thing before that, when somebody says it's hard or it's really expensive, because I know those organic foods, I really wish it wasn't like that. I wish that cheap packaged food wasn't cheap packaged food. But somebody asked me once how a Vitamix, because a Vitamix is really expensive. It's an expensive appliance on your counter.
For the whole, it's cheap.
Right.
So
I know, but the other thing is I lived in Illinois at the time, and I'm like, well, I have a snowblower in my garage. I use 12 times a year, no doubt. I mean, but it was great when I needed it. That cost maybe the same as that Vitamix, because at that point that was what I was going for. But I used that every single day, twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. And so when I posed it like that, when it's about your life and it's about what you use every day, that Vitamix was way more valuable than that snowblower to me. And so some people are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like, yeah. But now there's the Ninja and the Bullet, so there's lots of, you know, but, and also it's that good food. That good food can go a long way when you eat that kale salad versus that packaged whatever. Unfortunately, there's so much. And even some of the stuff.
Addictive.
Yes, it is. Highly addictive.
Sugar added and everything. So.
Yes.
But a really easy way to get beyond the organic price is to look at the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. You know about that?
Yes.
Environmental Working Group is a very brilliant group, ewg.org. You should look them up. They have information on toxicity. And every year they go through the Department of Agriculture's statistics on what pesticides are in what foods. And they create a list of the Dirty Dozen, which is now 14, because there's so many things that are sprayed. You never eat the Dirty Dozen if it's not organic. Blueberries, strawberries, peaches, tomatoes, celery, potatoes, iceberg lettuce. All these things are poison in a package, unless it says organic on the label. And then there's the Clean 15, which is things that are never sprayed. Who cares if they are, because it doesn't get through the skin. Avocados, bananas, onions. These are all clean products. You can get them and don't have to spend the money on organic. So you can actually choose. Don't buy the $3 avocado, get the $1 avocado. It's not worth it for the organic unless it's on sale, truly. So ewg.org and look at the Dirty Dozen. It's really an easy way to make your organic shopping better.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Question.
Hi, I'm Roberta.
Hi, Roberta.
How are you, Doc? Do you mind if I call you Doc?
That's fine.
That's okay. I actually have like a 3-parter, but I'll make it as fast as I can. Do people go to a doctor like you just for anything? Say, you know, like they tell me I have IBS, they tell me I have lactose intolerance, they tell me this and that. I come to you and you can find out if I have it or how to correct it or.
Yes, all of that.
All great.
People come to see me for wellness and to feel better. People come with diseases and to get out of them. And because I've been the guy in town for years, I get some of the most complex medical cases in the county, or in actually west coast of Florida. There's some tough people that come in.
Are there many of you, meaning your profession?
There's about 1,100 of us certified worldwide. There are a million doctors in America. There are less than 1,000 of us certified. Less than 0.1%.
Okay, and how would we go about finding you?
Oh, it
Like you.
just so happens that I have his information on the table, and you can take it with you when you walk out the door.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more. Are you using insurance? Obviously, I'm on Medicare and a supplement. Do you accept that?
It's not obvious that you're on Medicare.
Thank you.
But I left Medicare in 2010 because they don't allow me to do certain things that I want to do, and I left private insurance in 2001 because they are more restrictive than Medicare. Medicare is actually very good. It restricts only certain things. But I wanted to work with one of the better known neurologists in functional medicine, Dr. Perlmutter, and he did not do Medicare, so I left Medicare to work with him for a year. And so I never went back.
So is everything cash then?
For Medicare, it's cash for all my services. But for anything that I order, laboratory and things like that, that's Medicare contract with the lab. So just my services in my office aren't covered by the insurance. If you weren't on Medicare, you could submit to your insurance for out-of-network services for private insurance, but that doesn't work with Medicare.
Okay, well, I don't, I have supplement.
It doesn't work because you have to go through Medicare to get to the supplement.
That's not how it's working for you, that's okay.
Well, is yours a Medicare Advantage plan?
Yes.
Well, then you're even more blocked out. Because private insurance is more restrictive than Medicare, and if you sign up for Medicare Disadvantage plans, the advantages that you pay less, but the disadvantages, they block you out from access to so many things that Medicare pays for. You can't get labs, you can't get therapies, you can't get drugs, you can't get hearing aids.
Damn.
The Medicare disadvantage makes money for the insurer and loses the client.
Hey, you're not the only one.
I know. These guys are both very blunt.
Yeah, exactly.
And I agree with that. Yeah. And so that is one of the things, the whole insurance. That would be a whole other evening, the insurance topic.
Yes.
And not a good one, I'm afraid. And you know what I mean. And you had a question?
Well,
Marie?
he answered some of them. No, when did you leave the conventional type Western medicine? What year
94.
was it? 84?
94.
94.
Yes.
And then when you did that, you went back to school at that time, or did you go to school during this time?
There's no school for that.
For the
Just
functional.
functional.
There's really no school for it. What happened is,
Institute.
I read a book called Alternative Medicine. It was the only text I could find at the time, and it had stories about every type of things that weren't conventional. And Burton Goldberg had published that in like 92 or 3. And then I had my experience with my back, and then I explored all these different modalities personally. And then I opened up my private practice after working a year in Sarasota Memorial's emergency department, and I put an ad in Natural Awakenings magazine. It had just opened in Naples, and the woman that owned it came up to Sarasota and marketed me. And as soon as I put an ad in there that said internal medicine with a holistic intention, I started getting an even more broad holistic education. On the back cover of that was David Perlmutter's ad, and so I called him up and I went down to visit with him because he was practicing in Naples, and he connected me with the American Holistic Medical Association, the American College for Advancement in Medicine, which is the Chelation Society, and so I started getting into those conferences. At the same time, after I put my ad in, a nutraceutical company called Metagenics APN had its main office in Orlando, and I got invited to hear Jeff Bland speak in Orlando the first time, and he blew my mind and changed my career forever with one lecture. And convinced me that biochemical medicine and nutritional medicine was the way I needed to go, which led to other things like homeopathic medicine and energy medicine and all this whole broad field, because I got to explore it in more detail. But it was through that and the development of the Functional Medicine Institute with Jeff Bland, they started a certification program with extensive week-long modules of education. So I had to go back to school, but in pieces. And so it took, from 1997 till 2018 for me to get certified in functional medicine. In the process, though, I got certified in holistic medicine in the first class of the American Board of Holistic Medicine in 2000, and got certified in chelation in 1997, and so it's just been a continuous education process ever since.
Now, on the Western medication, Western side, did you keep up going, because I know you have to go for continued education to keep up your, on the Western medicine side, did you keep any of that?
Until 2005. And then I realized that there was no point in going back and hearing lectures about drugs, more drugs, and then some more drugs, and really not be able to even talk about what I do because I'm an alien to them. They don't understand a word of what I'm talking about when I talk about it. It's really pretty amazing.
And do you go over to the Eastern culture? Do you ever go over and see what they do?
I taught at the East-West College of Oriental Medicine here in Sarasota for a couple of years. And so, yes, I love Chinese medicine. I think it's wonderful. And Ayurvedic as well.
Wow.
Cool.
Yes.
That was crazy.
Any other questions?
Is there correlation between genders for people who get MS? Is it more women or more men? Is there any statistics?
It's supposed to be prominent in women, but it's supposed to hit men harder.
Exactly. Seems like more men get the progressive, aggressive kind. Maybe it's because men are more aggressive. Who knows? What is different about our physiology? Estrogen tends to calm the system down. Testosterone tends to rev it up. And so it could be something to do with that. It's a very complex question.
Do you find in the groups and the people that you meet, do you meet more women than guys?
It's kind of a good mix. And now that we're kind of bringing it to the forefront, it's getting younger and younger. So it's it's hard for people to talk about. So now that people are making a little bit of noise, it's bringing people out of the woodwork, which is cool because everybody feels you're pretty much alone until you build your own little community. Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to actually comment on that because one, in our circle, I mean, you continually hear typically more females that have it.
True.
However, men have a tendency to internalize it, not really bring it up.
Right.
And
But
so
how long it took me to go to the doctor. So
Exactly.
Just a
who knows how many
flash, just a
guys are out there
flash.
that are undiagnosed that are probably
Right.
struggling.
Well, and Doc, you can probably attest to this. I mean, guys, you told me this, guys don't come to you as readily as females do. And so it could be a big part of that is maybe they are out there, they just aren't telling anybody about it. So it's a flesh wound, you know, I mean, as you
Yeah,
said, so.
and I do think when because of the circles where I met Tony, and I think still even, well, if you think about the Wahls seminar and the crowd, you know,
It's predominantly women.
it really is.
But
And
every
then,
year it seems to get a few more guys, few more guys.
come on out, guys. No, I'm kidding. But it's true, and you know, I've been thoroughly. I don't want to say I'm blessed, but I am.
Why don't you want to say
I,
blessed?
you know, because you don't want to
You
say
are blessed.
I'm
You
blessed
are
because
blessed. We
well,
all are blessed.
okay, so I'm
Who
really,
are us not to be blessed?
well, I am.
I agree.
By my diagnosis of MS has profoundly changed my life forever. And it has changed my life forever in a very good way. And I have the honor of hanging out with people like Terry Wahls, who I met through a YouTube video. I mean, if I hadn't seen her TED Talk, and then here I go to her seminar and she asked me about, I do take my hula hoops everywhere. She asked me, what's that hula hoop all about? And so then I told her, she said, do you think, you know, I could try it? And I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, Terry Wahls wants to hula hoop with me.
On stage.
And, yeah, she did this year. Yeah, we
She
did.
did.
With
That's
our
great.
poop pads on because your poop's really important,
Poop is
you
a-
know.
Poop
Right?
is priority.
So we hula hoop with poop pads, not to be confused with, you know, pooping and pooping. But yeah, it does if you're moving, it keeps the body moving. But the truth is I meet people, and every year I meet more people, and I've been back 3 years in a row to that particular seminar, which generally speaking deals with autoimmune issues and people who are there to learn about food, to implement food, to take what's seemingly hard and make it easier, you know, which is what I did. And I do think it's more women, but I do think you're right. Over the last few years, I've met more men, and I think you raised a really good point back there, husband, that men don't always, you know, go and say, you know, I'm in pain, this hurts, what's wrong? And I see that my daughter back there has a question.
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so going back to something that Tony said, he mentioned something about feeling alone, and I feel like that's a very big part of almost any aspect of health and mental health as well. And I mean, you basically you literally found something, and then you created an organization based on that feeling that you had, like about the diagnosis process.
Yep.
And like, are there any suggestions that you might have to someone who's struggling to find a community or a group about an easier way to be able to find that basically community and family
It's kind of
surrounding
up
this?
to the individual too. I'm still, a lot of people don't believe that I'm shy or reserved or to myself. I do swear at research meetings, if that makes any sense. So I'm just, it's up to the individual. So online, Google is a great resource. Not to search for MS cures or articles. Just for support, I'd say go online. Try to find, there's meetup pages. You can start your own meetup groups. That's hard to find people that are into this, but even in general. So I'm really the only one that's like, and our group's not anti-med or anti-doc. We're trying to work with them for an actual symptom and disease management strategy, not just here's your script, we'll see you later. Because wellness is mind, body, spirit. There's so many different avenues and so many different cofactors that go into a diagnosis, but the mental health aspect of it is kind of has to be up to the person to want to reach out. I've talked to people all over the world now. It's pretty cool, and then we just point them in the right direction. Either if there's not a Wahls specific group, there's an MS group somewhere.
And there is here in Sarasota, because Chris is here, and Chris is with Friends of Hope.
Yeah.
And I thank Chris
Yeah.
for sending out my information about this evening, because some of you are here specifically because you got her email, and that's what networking and communicating and joining the conversation is all about. So thank you very much for doing that. And thanks for being here. It's good to see you again. And truly, and you know, it's that networking. And Cassie, thank you very much for asking that question. I appreciate that,
And a lot
because
of-
somebody out there may hear this and it'll help them find their way.
Besides Meetup, with the Reddit as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Say that again.
LinkedIn, there's groups. Yes.
She is talking about finding groups. I'm on Okribus, and there is an Okribus group on Facebook. So who knows where those people are all from. So I asked a question about where would be a nice state to live. I live in Florida and I need to get out of this humidity. And it was just all these people, you know, Arizona, California, Washington, Boston, and then they had sidelines. I'm looking for a doctor in South Carolina. Can anybody help me? And so then there were comments about that, and then somebody else had a comment. So I mean, we helped everybody, and I wrote a thank you and said thank you for all the suggestions. I'm glad we had all these little sidebar comments because it helped. And you know, they wrote back, oh yes, thank you and good luck. But yeah, Facebook has helped a lot.
I do think that's awesome, because our community is important.
Very, very important.
And that's a place where you can find a community where maybe you couldn't get to a group, but then you have a group of people who are so willing to help. Question?
Yes. Does higher humidity affect how a person feels on a particular day?
Everybody's a little bit different. Heat, I'm not heat sensitive, so they call MS the snowflake disease. Not any two people are alike. Depends where our lesions are and what nerves are exposed. I'm not heat intolerant. I am cold. I am sensitive to cold. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or old injuries.
You're a baby down here, man.
I need a snowbird. I need to be a young snowbird.
You're a baby
I need
down
to get out of
here.
Western New York in the wintertime. But everybody's a little bit different. And I think it's because what brings on like a heat exacerbation? Like specific?
Well, tolerance of temperature changes is due to the responsiveness of your autonomic nervous system. Sympathetic tone and parasympathetic tone balance the sweating and the blood vessel size and everything. So if your autonomic nervous system is the part of the brain that's been damaged by lesions, then you're going to have temperature control problems. Or if even the thermostat area is damaged, then there's going to be problems. So if you only have lesions that bother motor nerves or sensory nerves a little bit, then you're probably not going to notice as much of a temperature problem. And it just really depends, like you said, on how it's presenting.
And when I was first diagnosed, when I would go to the gym and overheat, my vision would go blurry and my depth perception, my balance, until I cooled off. So even in the wintertime, I would just sit outside until my body temperature came back to baseline, or I'd sit in the car with the AC on, and then as soon as I cooled off, everything was kind of back to baseline.
I want to comment on that, because I talked to you and you said you had never heard of them.
What? No,
My stepson, his son, has MS, and he put together an ice vest that he puts in ice packs when he gets overheated, and then that's where that comes in.
He's 40. His name is Stu. He's 46 years old right now, and he thinks it was about 6 years ago he got diagnosed with it. It's progressive, and he thinks he probably had it in his mid-20s by the way he feels about it right now, and the way he feels and senses. And heat is one of his biggest enemies. And he's living in Pine, Arizona. Thank God he just moved back to the Iron Range in Minnesota. It's nice and cool up there.
Right.
40 below.
Yeah, there you go.
We were just talking about that earlier too, like upon diagnosis day, looking back to things that were happening that could have been MS related, you don't really even think about it until you get an official diagnosis, and then for me it was
Yeah.
years. But I'm an idiot, and I waited.
No, you're not. You're not. No, and I was reflecting back that there's a change. And for you answering that same question, I get overheated if I go outside. When it's super hot, it's not good for me. But I don't have lesions on my brain and they're all in my spine.
Yeah, I'm not diagnosed with MS. I have arthritis and I've had that since my 20s. But I noticed when I went to California, my son was living out there and I was out there a couple of weeks and I could walk up the hill, no problem. Then I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico last year for a month in August when it's hot. You don't sweat and I had no pain.
Because there's no humidity?
I think so. I think so.
One-way ticket.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I'm going.
There, I'll go there, and then there.
You
There.
had mentioned something in the beginning of your 5 points, and one of the things when you were just talking about Facebook and whatnot, I think one of the most important things besides good food and the self-love is making sure you're surrounding yourself with people that are going to be supportive.
Yeah.
And I remember the drug group that you were
It's
hanging around. It was not positive
it's
in
very
nature.
wishy-washy. So if we're talking about food, a lot of people, you could either get really intimidated or inspired. There's like really no gray area, unfortunately. Because if you don't know about it, you're gonna kind of just ignore it or bash it or not really pay attention to it. And if your doctor's not stressing how important nutrition can be
It can hurt you.
Right.
All right? Okay, there you go. Okay,
No,
just
a lot of
saying.
people, if your doctor's not telling you, they're not going to really follow through with it, or be their own advocate, look on their own.
Yeah, and Doc didn't mention this, but besides him being the doctor, you also have your nutritionist as well in the
Yes.
office as well.
Well,
You hiring?
you're,
So my-
you are,
My
but,
registered dietitian has left the office to be replaced by my.
okay,
personal
that's what I was wondering.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and health coaching is a little different. She understands nutrition and understands how to help people understand transitions in nutrition. Dietitians are really good at telling you, here's some recipes that work really well, and here's a diet plan that works really well for your thing. But from my perspective, most are not very good at health coaching transitions. They really can rah-rah you into a new diet, but this isn't anything about a new diet. This is
No,
about a complete
it's
change
about
in the way
life.
you look at life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the whole issue. It's like, are
Yeah.
you eating to live or are you living to eat?
Yeah.
Are you exercising because somebody told you it's something to do or because you found a movement with which you have passion? And you're going
What?
fun movement.
What? I think you're talking about hula hooping, right?
even like functional medicine, nutrition is individualized.
Totally.
A piece of paper with a list of foods on it isn't necessarily going to be the same list that's going to work for her.
But that's how I start. They get a list. They get a plan.
You start,
here's
and
a
then
plan
you
that looks like
re-eliminate,
Wahls
and you
protocol.
re-eliminate, and you re-eliminate.
They can't
You
figure it.
create your own protocol. So
Yeah.
Well,
this book was
yes.
specific to her.
Right.
It's
Yes,
not what's going to work
it's
for
true.
us or her or him or her.
Because
we all have
I'm
to-
not eating the organ meat.
Well,
I'm
you
just
know,
not-
it's surprisingly not
Even
bad.
raw vegetables.
I know, okay.
Anything to do with digestion, raw vegetables could pose a problem for some people.
Right.
Because of oxalates, nightshades could pose a problem for some
Right.
people. So it's individual.
The thing is, most of that is your microbiome. So you have to work on the gut too to be able to tolerate some of the foods. If you can't tolerate raw foods, you got to look at why.
Right.
Not
Right.
just accept that it is, because humans have eaten raw foods for what, 2 million years? No, 4 million since little Lucy was cruising around the Rift Valley in Africa.
We've damaged our gut so bad from processed foods that our bodies don't recognize it to digest it. On top of prescription medications, on top of antibiotics, on top of all the shit we've been fed and given. Excuse my language.
Oh, these two are just so
Yes.
painfully blunt. I love it. I just love it.
But it's
agreed.
At least it's not vulgar.
No, not at all. You're right.
It seems complex, but when you start to get the gist of it, it's kind of basic. And then you put your own individual pieces of the puzzle together, just for a better quality of life. That's all. We'll always have what we have, but we're in control of it. Can you take better control of any disease? Yes, you can.
Absolutely. Every disease.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question
Of
about
course.
what you just said? maybe the doctor can do this.
That's my
She's
mom.
not asking
That's my
you.
mom.
Yes, and then there was a question here and a question back there. I want to make sure we get
If
that. Go ahead.
if you do change your nutrition 100% from being horrible eater to 99% of being a vigilant, good nutrition eater, why is it some people will still have a flare? If they're cutting their information
Well, okay,
down,
So we
Go
can
ahead.
go down the litany, but I'll start. Stress is the first big one. And then we have, how about toxic exposures? How can you avoid them? There's heavy metals, there's petrochem toxins, there's other drugs that may be administered for other medical problems that are causing disruption. Stress, of course, lack of sleep.
Well, another big one.
Yeah,
sleep.
Sleep is so critical.
Hydration.
And hydration, water. And really, so it's hard to tell what it is. Even the energy. I don't know about 5G's evidence yet, but there could be something there. We're integrated with microwaves. But also, if we have trouble with transmissions, wouldn't it affect every electrical conductivity aspect of our bodies too? You just have to be aware of what's going on. You have to pay attention. The only way you can pay attention is by going inside and meditating every day so you know what your body feels like to you in a quiet place. Otherwise, you don't know when you're being affected by an outside influence.
And then we'll go to
Cassie,
Bresson.
question. Cassie.
Or Bresson.
Boy, young girl.
Cassie, there's a question here, and then I'm going to come back to you, Pat.
All right, so my second question is about research, because as a student, I value like valid research and reliable resources and stuff like that. So, like a lot of the times, I hear people that are just like, well, I saw this online, and finding information online, like YouTube and Facebook and like groups on Facebook and stuff like that, has made communication of reliable and valid sources like a lot easier in
Or
recent years.
unreliable.
Or are you going
But
to
there's
that?
also the unreliable
Everybody's an
sources
expert.
and misinformation, and so just what are some ways that someone can find better, more valid, credible sources on information for MS, either for Wahls protocol specifically or any other type?
I myself, I look to PubMed for a lot of research-based sites. There's written papers, and a lot of those are all evidence-based papers. It's not just opinion. It's like, and you starting to see a lot more nutritional interventions and a lot of more papers and research on your biome and leaky gut. If you pay attention to all the marketing, even the junk companies are starting to talk about biome and probiotics and this, that, the other thing, you know.
It's getting complex on PubMed too, though, because there's a lot of scientific deceit. People, as we know, the drug companies make up stuff.
Correct.
And
Just to
they
get-
No,
hide- and
say
they
it's
hide-
not
they
so.
hide the bad stuff and publish only the good stuff.
Just to get
Also,
fun stuff.
is PubMed a free resource as well?
PubMed is free.
Okay, cool.
But the problem is, again, there's also profit in.
Answer to the question is you have to be an advocate. You have to look at where the information
You
is
have to look
coming
at where the
from.
information is, and go to scientific groups, like go to the Institute of Functional Medicine and see what they published on their site, because they're trying to promote health. Look to other societies that would publish this data. I don't know if you've seen the vitamin D study for MS. Has anybody seen a copy of that? It was published in 2012. It proves that it's equal to Copaxone
Better.
with no side effects.
Exactly.
No, they wouldn't say that. There was so little statistical difference. It was
Right.
pretty much equal in suppressing flares. Vitamin D therapy, a very specific protocol. And yet, I don't hear neurologists offering it. Why is that not a possibility?
No, they do not.
It's
That was
published in the
never
American Journal
offered
of
to
Neurology.
Your chances
Never
of
offered.
even getting MS with a proper vitamin D level are decreased if your levels are optimal.
Yes.
If you're lower, you get a higher chance of getting.
But if you actually have the disease and you take this protocol, you have a huge drop in the flares. But I don't hear a neurologist ever recommending it. Not one.
The only person I heard say anything about the vitamin D, was Dr. Promo. So, of course, right? And he answered.
Embry's a big vitamin D
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I had another question over here.
Back to her heat question. In my Facebook question, I said the humidity has killed me this summer. I have not gone outside because of the humidity of 88, but feels like 108. And so that's the answers, you know. This part of South Carolina is real bad humidity. California was okay. Arizona, great dry heat. So, you know, they did answer some of those type of things because the humidity is what kills me. I can do the heat up to a point, but I can't do the humidity, and I can't do the cold.
I don't like that either. Not at all. All right. And then we have one more question here.
You were saying kilo, I don't know what that is.
Chelation.
Chelation, what is that?
Chelation Therapy is, chele is from Greek, the word means claw. And there was some brilliant doctors who thought about this agent that was designed by the Germans to take iron stains out of white cotton. And so what it is the chemical EDTA grabs onto metal and it doesn't let it go, and then you pee it out in your urine. The affinity that this chemical has for different metals, it changes. So calcium and EDTA have a very high affinity. And these doctors thought, well, there's calcium plaque in coronary arteries. We can take the calcium plaque out doing chelation therapy. It doesn't exactly work that way. There's another mechanism that I won't go into because that's another day lecture. But what it does is work. And what it does is reverse heart disease. And it is also good for taking toxic metals out like lead, aluminum, and cadmium and arsenic. So it's a treatment for heavy metal toxicity, but it's also a treatment for rejuvenating the vascular system.
From the bottom of my very blessed heart, I am thrilled to have you all here this evening. I hope you came and got some information that you wanted, needed. Whatever drew you here, I hope you leave feeling more blessed by having come. I want to thank Tony and his family who are back there for coming out on their vacation. We were at the beach where it was very hot earlier today, hula hooping, whoop whoop. And I really want to just thank you all for coming out here. Tony, thanks for sharing some of your vacation with us. I want to thank you for being amazing, for being like mind-blowing knowledgeable. He spouts out stuff that I'm like, I know I read something about that somewhere, and he's like crackerjack with all the information all over it, and truly inspirational. And I'm so glad you're in this community where I can find you and others can find you as well. So thank you so much for coming out here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Here's the important thing. Do we look good and do I look good?
You look fantastic, Mom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Suddenly I'm like very hot again. Oh, this is gonna be fun. No, I took Tony and his family. We went to the beach for a little bit to see the crazy drum circle, and also, which was just starting, but man was it warm over there, so we got a little overheated. So thank you all for coming out tonight. It's lovely to have you here. Whew, I'm taking a breath. I'm not nervous. Tony asked me if I was nervous earlier. No, I'm fine. Yeah, I am. I am a little nervous. So each one of, for those of you, not you. Okay, deep breath. 2 in, 4 out. Now we're good. He's a functional.
That food. The packaged stuff is more like tasty food like substances.
Food like tasty food like substances. And yes, and unfortunately, we can ask some questions, but can I ask you, one of you two, to take a quick picture? picture with us up here.
Of course.
And then we'll put some music on, break it up. You guys can chit chat, say hello.
Alright,
And
Before you
thank
cut,
you so much.
I want to tell you,
Yes, please.
WNNF.org, look at the broadcast schedule, 10 a.m., sustainable living, health and nutrition, that's my show,
I'm
every
so
other
sorry.
week.
Yes.
Say that again,
WNNF.org, look at the broadcast schedule,
Please,
Monday
please.
morning at 10.
Monday at 10.
I'm going to have it hooked to my own 11 months now of shows on WNNF that approach every health topic possible.
And thank you for mentioning that, because I said I wanted to make sure we
Yes,
mentioned it, and
you
I
did.
forgot. I know, these two are my radio people, so we'll talk about that. So can I take a quick picture with you as well up here?
And by the way, she's passing out medical cannabis next article that I wrote because cannabis is valuable in the support of someone with MS.
What? Here's a quick picture.
You can't take a cash register receipt that's got BPA on it. BPA is a hormone modulator. It stops the crosstalk in your body, changes it. When you have miscommunication in your body, you end up in problems. And so if you eat that really good piece of wild salmon, it may have just been the one that ate a mercury small fish. And so there's solar storms. When the sun has a mass coronal ejection and it throws hundreds of billions of tons of radioactive material at us and sends an electromagnetic shock wave at the Earth, we are all affected. Communication.
Ask you something about the chelation.
Sure.
When Tony was first diagnosed, he went through a series of chelation. What's your thought on somebody having MS and having that, because after he had all of that through a functional doctor, I was reading that it can also be dangerous for somebody with MS because it stirs up the toxins in their body.
Yeah, so there is a controversy stirred up by people online for probably because they want to sell a product that's not chelation. Would be my guess, because I've been doing chelation since 1997 and I've never seen it worsen anyone. If you take someone who's really sick and you try to do metal detoxification, which uses different setup than the standard chelation therapy, you can make them sick because you're going to move mercury through the body when it's really sick, and moving mercury is really dangerous, and you want to do that very safely. But EDTA doesn't move mercury; it moves lead and arsenic and cadmium, and so it's actually not as risky. And the way it's given